Well, it's always a good day when you can smoke a cigar and talk to one of the funnest, interesting Renaissance men in the business. It's Erik Calvino, the owner, publisher of one of the best things you'll ever see and read, Cigar Snob Magazine. Thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Oh, man, thank you. Thank you for that intro. That's
Right?
a
Well,
Renaissance man.
You paid me good money. The check went through. I didn't have to wait 3 days.
The only way to do it.
So since you are embedded in the cigar industry because of Cigar Snob Magazine, I want to do sort of a state of the union of cigars. I mean, obviously, I've been smoking cigars since I was 8 years old. I'm Cuban. I had no choice, right?
You're not smoking since 8.
Oh, but I really got into it in the boom in the 90s, right?
Yep.
Growing up in LA and everything like that. So where is the cigar industry today? Is it in a good place?
Well, it is and it isn't, right? It's in a good place in that the companies that make good cigars are selling like crazy. So it's in a good place in that sense.
Right.
Cigars are moving like never before. People working from home are now smoking cigars during the day, which they wouldn't have before because they would have been in an office. So COVID has accelerated a problem. It depends on how you look at it, but it could be a problem in that sales were moving from the brick and mortar to the online and catalog retailer. Mm-hmm. And so COVID accelerated that even more. Stores being closed during COVID quarantine, and then people just not wanting to leave their houses, so they've been ordering online. So that accelerated that move or that shift to online sales. But the numbers are huge, right? The numbers are huge. So again, depends what vantage point you look at that from. If you're a brick and mortar retailer, the state of the industry doesn't look good, right? If you're a little mom and pop shop that doesn't have a liquor license, like here we're at Galiano, right? Mm-hmm. And they were gracious enough to host us for this. This place has got a liquor. It's got a tremendous humidor. It's got a place to hang out, high ceiling, so you don't leave here smelling
like
too bad for your wife. Yeah.
Right.
So not everyone has that luxury. So a mom and pop shop that doesn't have liquor license, they're struggling a bit. So they have to get creative, and we're kind of in the middle of that right now. Those mom and pop shops trying to figure out how they can still appeal to their customer and not lose all of them to online or to places like this.
It reminds me, and you tell me if I'm barking up the wrong tree here. Like, this reminds me a little bit of the '90s, where it seems like everybody has a cigar, everybody has a brand, everybody has a new label, and I think that's good because I think obviously competition is good, but it almost feels like you got to wade through a lot of bad cigars to get a good cigar.
Yeah, you can look at it that way. I'll tell you this: it's not just in the boom that happened. The cigar industry has a very low barrier to entry, right? You don't have to spend a lot to get a cigar company in Nicaragua or Honduras or the Dominican to make you a line of cigars. And you don't have to spend a lot to have a label put on it. Mm-hmm. So the barrier to entry is very low. So you've always had an influx of these up and coming cigar guys who just start their brands. So that's not new. Now, there's some bad in that obviously now there's a lot, as you said, you got to wade through a lot of stuff to get to the good stuff. But at the same time, out of that bad stuff, let's say, there's some very good cigars that come out of it, right? Over time, we've had a lot of brands that have come up very similar to the scenario you're describing, right? A guy who just had a brand made, and he stuck with it, and he did a few things really well, and now he's a brand, and it's a brand that brings new energy and new life to the cigar business. So you can look at it as a negative. I look at it as a positive. I look at they bring energy and they bring new ideas that kind of, again, just revitalize the cigar industry. So I don't mind it. I think it's fun. And it puts the onus on the consumer to do a little bit more research. And it also puts the onus on magazines like ours to do good, honest ratings that give people an idea, is this cigar worth smoking or not?
Right.
And so that's, I don't mind it at all. I think it's fun.
So let's talk about you. Let's talk about Cigar Snob. I mean, your story. You're an IT guy?
Yeah, I was a programmer.
And so obviously you enjoyed cigars, but how did this all start for you?
Well, so I was a programmer living in New York City and working for big investment banks up there. And then I met the woman who would eventually become my wife. Mm-hmm. And then I moved back down here to Miami. I'm originally from here. Got married. she gets pregnant with our first child, and I don't want to keep traveling the way that I was traveling in IT. Once I moved back down here, all of that, so what I did was data warehousing and business intelligence, and there wasn't a lot of that down here.
Gotcha.
So I always had to travel. So Monday morning I was on a plane, and Friday night I was on a plane back to Miami.
Oh, wow.
So it was every week that travel schedule. And so once our first son was born, I didn't want to keep doing that. So that's where it started. I still continued consulting down here, but it wasn't obviously as lucrative as before. And then I decided that as I got more into cigars, I didn't like the magazines that were out. I thought that they were speaking to the wrong audience. So I thought that they were aiming just way too high, and they were making it too stuffy, too snobby, which is why that's where the name comes from.
That's why it's called Cigar Snob?
Yeah, that's where the name comes from. I thought that it's too stuffy for me. I'm a guy who'd been smoking cigars since the mid-90s, and cigars are not, at least in this country, they're not only for the uber elite.
Exactly.
They're not for the uber wealthy. You can be a middle-income guy who just wants to enjoy a cigar on a Friday, and you can get yourself an $8, $9 cigar. You can get yourself $4 or $5 cigar and enjoy the hell out of it. Right. So cigars are, in my view, they're the most egalitarian product. Like I can smoke an Opus X. I can be a guy who makes $45,000 a year,
right,
and still enjoy an Opus, right? And I can pay $25, or I can get a Padron 1926, or a Sin Compromiso, which is 20 some odd bucks too, or a Plasencia más Fuerte. I can get an expensive cigar and enjoy it just the same, or a Davidoff, and enjoy it just the same as the guy who's wealthy, hedge fund manager, or whatever he is. I can still enjoy it with him. And so I think cigars are not only for the uber wealthy. So what we did is, rather than target the Maybach Bentley consumer, right. We targeted the BMW, Lexus, all the way down to the Honda Accord, right? And that's kind of our target audience. And that's why our content is much more approachable, much more fun. And so that was the idea of the magazine. Also to cover events, that was also a big thing. Events were happening all over the place. And we see now how important events are, but in 2006, we kept seeing event after event after event, and no one's there to cover it. And so it was something that I thought was just being wasted. There's a lot of good times and a lot of good things happening in these events, and no one's capturing any of these moments. So we did that, and that was a big part of the beginning of Cigar Snob.
I'll be honest with you. For me, all the cigar magazines that I've seen, the first thing I do is I don't even go to the ratings, or I go to the back, which is, hey, it's Fulanito's birthday party, or it's this person's quinceañera, this person's wedding, and there are the pictures of the people.
I don't think we've ever done a quinceañera, all right? So maybe that's another.
Maybe see that's where you raise the level. The cigar magazines that I was on MySpace, the cigar magazines that I was.
The quinceañera party would be awesome.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine, because legal smoking age depends on what state you're in. 18
you're
or
in the
21.
backyard, and then the kids are already asleep at this point.
All right.
But I think I've said too much.
That's good.
But tell me about the early days of the magazine for you. Did you ever sit there and say to yourself, it's a passion project, right? It's a labor of love. Otherwise, you don't do it, right? Because
not really.
What are you doing with this?
People say that it was a passion project, but it wasn't. I mean,
well, you didn't hate it.
My intention was to get to that point. It wasn't to just like, let's do something and see if we can have fun with it. No, I wanted to make a business out of it.
Gotcha.
And so it's a very tight-knit, family-run business from the very beginning. And but the idea was always to get to this point and beyond. So it wasn't to just stay as a little South Florida-based magazine.
You said something to me that really, I think, defines your personality and makes a lot of sense now. It's the competition of it. That's what really drives you as a business owner on your everyday. It's the competition of it, right?
Yeah. I wasn't blessed with the body to be able to compete in sports at a high level. I played every sport I could.
Right.
Never at a very high level, because I was given what I was given.
Right.
But the competitiveness has always been there. I love competing. I love competing at anything. If we're gonna play quarters, I want to beat you. I want to win at everything. And so the magazine allows me to compete on a business level, which is fun, because I think that we have an advantage in that we're obviously a smaller team than many of our competitors. So we're able to be more agile. We're also a little bit more tech savvy than the other competitors in the print space, and so we're able to do things that they don't. And so it's fun. For me, the competition of it is what drives me every day.
I can see it like your face.
Oh, yeah.
I can see your mind. I can see the hamster churn, and you're always thinking. You're always because that's the real satisfaction of it.
Of course.
Doing it and winning.
Oh,
because
yeah.
if you're gonna do it, you do it to win.
Yeah, we're not doing anything just to sort of tread water.
Right.
We're always trying to just one up it. And by the way, that's why each issue people always tell us like, man, how do you guys like when you look at some of the covers here, by the way, Galiano Cigar Shop, Cigar Room has some of our covers on their walls. And you look at some of those covers and people say, how do you top that cover? That was shot inside the Duro Fuente Opus X humidor.
Oh my gosh.
In Santiago, Dominican Republic. It's a place that few people get to go to, and we got to do a photo shoot there. And people say, how do you top that? And then you see this, and you're just like, holy mackerel.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you because the photography on this isn't your buddy.
No,
this isn't
these
your
are big
this isn't your
productions.
high school buddy with his cell phone.
No.
This is legitimate photography.
Fashion photography, yeah. The whole team, except for us, is all like high fashion photography people. And then you get us, like the cigar people. We're always lighting the cigars and making sure that the label looks right, and then helping the girls smoke cigars. Sometimes the girls, like this one, she smoked, and so that's fun. They are massive productions, especially that one in Utah, which is the issue that people are seeing September, October. So yeah, it's fun. Those things we get to just flex our creativity. Right? Our creative muscle, we get to flex it in these photo shoots.
Now, since I've been consuming Cigar Snob, it's always been gorgeous women with cigars. Has that always been what you had on there?
No.
Because obviously that's what grabs your attention.
Yeah. No doubt that's our formula, but in the very beginning it wasn't, right? We started off, we didn't have the budget to do a photo shoot like this. So the very first issue has like a snifter and like 3 cigars, and that's the cover. It was sad looking. And then our second issue, we thought, we've done it now. We got Arturo Sandoval.
Celebrity, okay.
Super trumpet player, right?
Right.
Like if you were to name 3 trumpet players, he's on your 3, right?
Right, first, second, and third, yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe Dizzy Gillespie gets in there. So we get him, and we get him on the cover, and still, you get no real buzz, no real needle moving. And then Ivan, who is the guy that still to this day produces the photos, he's one of my oldest friends and one of my best friends. He goes, dude, I think it's time. We got to just go with girls on the cover. Let's do it. And so we scrounged together a few dollars and we're able to put together a photo shoot.
Now that's a slippery slope because
Yes, it is.
These things can go, having a beautiful woman.
They can go raunchy real fast.
It can go sideways.
Yeah.
So how did you keep that from happening? I'm sure your wife was a good editorial assistant in this, or editorial concept
for sure,
manager in this.
But yes, she was. But what the hell?
What is this?
Yeah. So no, but the idea was always, it has to stay classy. It has to be sexy, but classy. And so we always. How do we manage it is that Ivan and I are always on top of it. Like we don't just go, hey, here's your budget, go shoot it, and send us the pictures afterwards. We're always there. We don't just let it happen. Even though that costs us more money, right? So we had 3 Cigar Snob people at that shoot in Utah. That's 3 more flights you got to pay for, 3 more hotel rooms, 3 more meals every day. So
how long is a typical shoot like this?
So these are each, let's say there's 2 shoots in this one. Each shoot was a full day. Full day, 7 a.m. to 7 at night.
Each setup, each location.
Not each location, each shoot. So this shoot had 3 locations.
Oh, wow.
And the other one had 3 locations. Wow. Yeah, and it was all hiking to each location. It was incredible.
Smoking a cigar, hiking up that mountain.
The hikes in this one were crazy because we were at we went to this one place. It's like a sandstone mountain. And the base of it is at around 7,000 feet above sea level. We are sea creatures over here in Miami, right?
Right.
And so we start at 7,000, and then we start climbing with equipment, carrying photo equipment.
Lights, the cameras, the
clothing,
tripods,
all kinds of stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
Carrying all that, we carried it up about 25 floors up a sand, because again, it's a sandstone mountain. So everything off the side of it is just sand. It's like beach sand. So you're climbing up. It was hellacious. And then when we got up there, that's when we were like, wow, that's why we just did this climb. Because it was a chamber that was windblown, and it was amazing. We were way up there in this windblown chamber with a dune in the middle. It's just, you'll see it in the pictures there. It was just breathtaking.
Amazing.
It was like a religious experience. As a matter of fact, the cigar that we smoked for that was Casa Cuba. And there's one Casa Cuba called the Divine Inspiration, which was Don Carlos Fuente. Basically, he doesn't know it, but he's on his deathbed. Mm-hmm. And he tells Carlito the blend for this particular tweak to Casa Cuba. And that tweak became this brand called this, let's say, brand extension of Casa Cuba called Divine Inspiration. And so we're way up there. We finished shooting, and I grabbed one of those Divine Inspirations and went off to an edge and sat there and smoked it, thinking about it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Wow. Yeah. So you get to do those things, and those experiences are just, once in a lifetime type things.
I even think Arturo Sandoval would give you his blessing that you moved on from him to sandstones and divine inspirations. Wow. Okay, so one of the main things that I think every magazine worth their salt is you got to rank. It's in sports radio, everything. There's a top this, top this. It's always got to have a list. How hard is that, or is that the fun part for you to do
it's
the top 25 this, top 25 that?
It's not fun at all.
Because I'm sure you got people calling you, blowing up your phone. Oh yeah, what about?
It's nightmarish. It is, and the ugly side of people comes out, and it's bad. But it's something we have to do, right? We have to at the end of the day. So we do something a little bit different on our top 20. The list you're talking about is our top 25, which comes out in January. And we do something a little bit different in that we take all of the cigars that were rated 91 and above for the year.
Okay.
Those become candidates for top 25. Those all get re-smoked. And then the cigars that were new for that year, so new releases that year, they get a bump in the weighting because they were new.
Okay.
And we do that so that you have some movement, right? You're not always talking about the same 5 cigars because you could.
Right.
You could end up, if you really wanted to do this, you could end up with the same top 10 every year.
Sure.
Because there are cigars out there that are so good, that are so consistent, that year in, year out, they're going to be in your top 10, top 5.
Right.
That's going to happen. So in order to not have that, we give a bump to a new cigar. So if it was newly released that year, it gets a little bit of a bump. That's why you get like Sin Compromiso got number 1, Alma Fuerte from Plasencia got number 1 once. But then last year, Padron 1964 Exclusivo. And that tells you just how good that cigar is. That even with the bumps, it was still the best cigar that year. So, and then the other thing is that it's based on the cigars that we rated that year. So, are there other cigars out there that could have made the list? Yeah, of course. But if we didn't rate it during that year, we can't tell you that was the best cigar we rated last year. And then people say all the time, well, how come this cigar could be, number 3 one year and then be number 8 or not even be on the list the following year? Cigars are a natural product. They change.
Environment.
They change. And although they are blended to be consistent, there is a variability to it, right? So sometimes it's human beings making the cigars and it's Mother Nature controlling the elements for that tobacco. So there's variability, and sometimes a cigar can be better one year from one batch to the next. And so, like, I remember for one example of that is Davidoff Nicaragua. When it first came out, we tasted Davidoff Nicaragua at the trade show in Vegas in July. We tasted it for the first time. We thought, that's good, but it isn't anything out of this world. And then we retasted in the ratings for the November issue. So we tasted again like in October. And it was a home run. And we were like, holy shit, where was that? Can I curse here? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Where was that in July? How can this be so different? And then we retasted again at the end of the year for top 25, and it ends up being our cigar of the year. A cigar that was okay when it first, like that first batch.
Right.
And that could be attributed to Davidoff having to rush it in order to get it to the trade show. Who knows what? Or maybe the dry conditions of Las Vegas maybe
Yeah.
didn't suit that cigar.
That's a good call, yeah.
So there's a million things that can happen.
I mean, I'm a sports guy. I come from the sports world. So to me, it's almost like, hey, you play a basketball team or you play an Alabama, University of Miami. In September, maybe they lost in September, but by bowl season,
Sure.
all of a sudden
Different
they've grown.
team.
And that's how
Not UM, but you could say that about
trying to
other-
be nice. Trying to be nice.
Me too, but man, it doesn't happen to us.
All right, so now as everything has to develop and grow, this obviously the print version of Cigar Snob. There's also the digital version.
Yep.
How did that? When did that decision come? It was just natural. You
Yeah,
had to do it.
we had to do it, and so we went with Apple as our preferred Apple newsstand, and little by little they've been killing anything related to tobacco, and a few issues ago they completely killed it. Like we can't even upload a new issue to it anymore.
So what did you do?
So now we've moved everyone over to issue.com. So it's issuu.com.
Okay.
And you can get the magazine there. Same price as everything as Apple Newsstand, but it works on every phone, every platform. They're not banning tobacco like Apple is, and they have an app on issuu.com. You can download the app and read the magazine in the same exact way that you used to on Apple. So if you haven't done so, go over and get that.
issuu.com. So inside the magazine, and you've also branched out to YouTube pages, right?
Yeah. We got
and
a
all
YouTube
social
channel.
media. Now, one of the things that you have here that's on your YouTube is your mailbag.
Yeah.
And I know that when I first told you, you were like, oh, yeah.
Well, no, it's so funny because the mail time videos, they're the thing that we produce the least.
And it's the stuff that it basically what
Companies
it
are
is.
sending us, yeah.
Company will send you a box of something, you don't know what it is, and you open it on camera.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it is we want to keep the surprise real. So we don't know what's in it. Like you could easily open the box from the bottom and figure out what's in it, right? But we don't, because the idea is to just be surprised by it. So people sometimes ask me like, how could you like not know the exact name of the size? Because everything that we do is so produced that people expect us to produce this.
so polished,
And we don't.
and
It's not polished. Like we're opening, we're like, this is the, I think it's a casa.
Let me get my glasses. What does it say?
And my sister, whose eyesight is like next to nothing, so she's struggling with it. She'll mispronounce names. It's really funny. So it's a goofy thing we do, and yet, as soon as I walk into a cigar store, the first thing people tell me about is those damn mail time
That's
videos.
the first thing I told you.
At the trade show every year, hey, where's your knife? People are asking me constantly, where's my knife?
Knife.
Today I left it in the car.
The knife is like the star of the segment.
Well, my sister's the star of the segment. The knife is like her sidekick.
Well, she's also nearly stabbed you about 30 times with that thing.
That's the fun
What's
part
the
of it.
wildest thing you ever got? I mean, obviously, you don't want to say jaded, but you've seen a lot of humidors, cigars, tricks.
We've gotten guitars, we've gotten all kinds of stuff. But we had this one guy who I know. He started a coffee company, and he sent in a pack of coffee for us to taste. And
Right.
you're like, well, what's so special about the coffee, right? No big deal. But then what he used as you know how you use like those little use crushed cardboard or something so that the
Right.
stuff doesn't get crushed.
Exactly.
So what he used is he printed a series of papers that had messages in them. And so he had a letter on it. He's like, open each paper. And then we had to open each one and read it. And it was making fun. It was making fun of someone in the cigar industry. So it was like, read it, laugh. You're like, well, I can't show you this one. And it was making fun of people. It was awesome. It was uncomfortable, but it was funny. And then he was just losing it. He called me the second the video came out. He's like, I love it. That's exactly what I wanted to do to you. So we've had people send goofy stuff like that.
Awesome.
And that's the fun part of it.
And now finally, obviously, we're doing a show here. You have a podcast that accompanies Cigar Snob, right?
Yeah. And that luckily Apple has not shut down. But that one is on Apple Podcast. And it's just a Cigar Snob podcast. And what we do is Ivan and I get together and we'll do like a banter episode where we'll just talk about current events and things like that. Always while smoking a cigar.
Gotcha.
And we'll both smoke the same cigar and then give our thoughts along the way. So the idea is that the show works as an entertainment, but it also works to tell you what we're experiencing on a certain cigar. And we give you kind of like the thirds. So we start smoking it, our initial thoughts, and then halfway through, we'll give you our thoughts again. and then at the end, final thoughts about the cigar. So it allows consumers to maybe get our take on what we feel about a particular cigar. And then, so there's two episode types, that type, and then there's the interview type. So we'll have a master blender or a cigar company owner come in, and then we'll interview him and talk about his cigars, all the while smoking a cigar. Sometimes I try to, so I store a lot of cigars. I age a lot of them. And so sometimes the guy will come in and I will give him a cigar that he has no more of those left. Like recently we had an episode with Claudio from Mombacho. And when I gave him the cigar, he's like, oh my God, I haven't smoked one of these. I don't have any of these left. These are the last ones that I know of.
Oh my God.
And so we do that, and that's fun. It's fun to have a guy smoke his cigar and give you his thoughts on how it has aged. And people think that making cigars is easy and that anybody can do that. The guys who are blenders that are really into it, the level of knowledge that they have, you give them this cigar and they'll tell you it's amazing. They'll tell you exactly what binder they're using, what filler's being used. They'll know all about it. It's crazy. It's impressive when you talk to those guys like Henke Kellner, like Pepin Garcia, and in this case Claudia did that. And it's pretty interesting to talk to those guys because their palates are so fine-tuned.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
It's impressive. If you haven't had the chance to do that, actually, a guy like Nick Perdomo, who you interviewed,
right,
is like that. He'll be able to tell you. It's impressive.
He's an encyclopedia. It's amazing. Yeah. When did cigars come into your life? When did you have that cigar that made you go, oh my gosh?
Yeah. That's a really good question. My grandfather smoked cigars my entire childhood. So yeah. So he would send me to go to the store and buy he smoked Padron. Okay. And so not the store, the cafeteria. That's where we used to buy cigars here in Miami. So I would go and buy him his cigars. And there was a couple times that I got to taste a little bit of one. Right. But that's as a kid. But as a young man, I was in college. I was at Barry University. And my sister was dating this guy who was very good friends with Jose Oliva. Now, the Olivas did not have a cigar company at this time. Mm-hmm. And so Jose and I became friends, right, through the guy who my sister was dating. And so we became really good. To this day, he's my first son's godfather. That's how close we are. And so eventually, in like 1996, 97 or so, his father launches the first cigar called the Gilberto Oliva. It was a white label with gold lettering. And so he's like, dude, we gotta smoke my dad's cigar. We gotta try it. And I said, look, I used to play sports, like I said, and I didn't smoke anything. I really was like, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. Right. And so he's like, but we gotta try this cigar. And yeah, well, show me what do I have to do? So showed me how to cut it, showed me how to light it, and we were at a friend's house, and I smoked my first cigar that day. I'll never forget. It was a Lonsdale shape. Which is a little bit smaller than a Churchill, a little bit thinner. And that day I drove home in second gear the whole way. I was like, and I was always like, how quickly can I get from point A to point B? Right. And that day I just cruised home and I was like, wow, I think this is like what I need in my life. And so then I got home the next day. I called him. I was like, hey man, can I get a few more of those? Like I want to get into this. And from then on, I've been smoking regularly. And Jose is obviously a big part of it. So even that's what I'm smoking right now is Oliva G. Mm-hmm. So always been a big fan of Oliva. And listen, their cigars are amazing. So
it's a sign of respect for you because it's obviously the first one would turned you into this world for you, into this lifestyle.
As a matter of fact, Jose had a hand in naming the magazine because I said, look, I'm going to start a magazine, this and that. He's like, you know what I've seen? People on the road, like the guys that really love cigars, call themselves cigar snobs. And I was like, you know what? That's perfect because it's kind of tongue-in-cheek because I don't want the magazine to be snobby. Right. I just want you to be snobby about cigars. Right. And so he even named that.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, this is Erik Calvino. It's Cigar Snob Magazine. It is out both in print and digital. Where we can find it, cigarsnob.com?
Cigarsnob.com. You can get everything there. You can get hats, shirts. You can get the magazine. You can subscribe to the podcast. Also check out the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. The magazine is $18 for the year, which is very inexpensive. You get 6 issues. And then you can also get it at Barnes & Noble, Publix, all the big supermarket chains.
That's it. Yep. Well, I'm going to enjoy my Flor Dominicana. Yep. You're going to enjoy the Oliva. And I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you, man.
It's
Thank you
Erik
again.
Calvino, everybody.
Thank you.